Forspoken is definitely making the list of the worst games released in 2023, and no matter how much they talk about DLC or patches, nothing can save this game because at its core, it's a bad experience. And we heard, of course, that the studio was being folded back into Square Enix, that the sales were lackluster, and that the reception was challenging for them. But a new report says they had spent over $100 million on this pile of garbage. I have a bunch of different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So this is a Games Radar article. It says Forspoken reportedly cost $100 million to make, and players are baffled. Honestly, I'm baffled too. This game was a nightmare for Square Enix and of course Luminous Studios because they tried so hard to make a Western game and a game that would appeal to what they thought Western audiences wanted. And this game utterly failed. I mean, I personally was initially going to play it, and the more trailers I saw and the more gameplay I saw just turned me off from it, and I decided ultimately to not purchase it, and many other people feel the same way. When they were calling it Project Athia and they were showing us the concept arts, it looked really neat, but the final product was just not good. It says Forspoken reportedly cost more than $100 million to make. The LinkedIn account of the game's lead writer, Allison Reimer, describes Forspoken as a fantasy AAA video game, $100 million plus budget with release date set for fall of 2022. And this, of course, was the game's original window before its second delay. It did face a couple of delays because they said they needed more time to work on it and polish it, which I usually think is good, but unfortunately at its core this title was just not good. The writing was awful, the characters were just not very good, they were very lackluster, and the combat itself is appealing, but unfortunately it did have quite a lot of technical problems. It says the discovery of her comments come just a few days after Square Enix said that the game's sales had been lackluster and that its financial failings posed a considerable risk to the parent company. Now, there has been a lot with Forspoken. Of course, the studio that created this game shut down, and Square Enix had hyped up this studio quite a lot. They said that it was going to create big new AAA experiences, and they just had a lot of hope, publicly at least. Maybe behind the scenes they were worried about its failures, but then they released Forspoken and a month and a half later shut down because this game was such a disaster. Of course, these people are going back to different branches of Square Enix. They did previously work on games like Final Fantasy 15, but that just shows how much money they lost, and we knew this game didn't make money because only 2 weeks after release it had already gone on sale. But now we have people behind this project just coming out and saying it had issues. The Forspoken studio, of course, absorbed back into Square Enix, but Square Enix had said only a couple of days ago that the sales were lackluster. It says they had positive feedback on its action features, highlighting its parkour and combat mechanics. That said, its sales have been lackluster. While the performance of new titles with February and March release dates will be the ultimate determinant, we see considerable downside risk to our FY 2023/3 earnings. Now, hearing that this game cost $100 million to make absolutely blows my mind because this game doesn't feel like a high-end AAA experience. Unfortunately, it just wasn't. I mean, the last game to release that was a massive failure that cost over $100 million to make was the Saints Row reboot. And what do these two games have in common? They tried to appeal to modern audiences slash Western audiences. They tried to make content that was with the times, aka really annoying protagonists and just characters in general. I mean, some of the NPCs were also so annoying. And they thought that making a pretty game would work. I mean, Saints Row Reboot visually does look pretty good. Forspoken also looks pretty good visually as well. But the substance there, the writing, is just awful. And now people have taken to social media to voice how surprised they are with this number. Somebody had posted, okay, now I'm convinced that Forspoken was a money laundering OP because a $100 million budget did not reflect in the game. And I have to definitely agree. There's no way that they put $100 million into this. And if they did, I don't know where it went. I genuinely refuse to believe that. There's no fucking way. Given how fast the company got folded back into Square, it wouldn't surprise me if this was true. With that kind of budget, I would expect a more lively open world, and some people are arguing that, oh, games are getting more expensive to make. That's why they have to raise the price of games. But we have actually heard in recent reports that the price of games has gone up a little bit, but not significantly enough. It just seems like Square Enix really wanted this team to make a big experience, so they threw a massive budget at them, thinking that they would at least break even. But hearing them say that the sales have been lackluster, I honestly bet that they only made like half of their budget, maybe 3/4, but it just isn't enough for them. Now, for me personally, I'm pretty disappointed to see games like Forspoken release. I found this tweet that I wanted to share. Square Enix went so hard trying to appeal to the West that they developed 3 live service games that failed so spectacularly they all shut down this year, and that was Babylon's Fall, Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier, and also Marvel's Avengers. But we also have to add something like Forspoken to the list, because even though that was not a live service title, it still had big issues and clearly lost them a boatload of money. It is sad that Square Enix has tried to appeal to the West so much, because they created such amazing content for so many years, and now they're just releasing failure after failure. And I obviously hope that they can come back from this and kind of reevaluate what they're doing, what they're making, because they can make some kick-ass games, but titles like Forspoken are just not good. They need to realize they're only going to continue to lose money on these games if this is the direction that they go in. But yeah, apparently Forspoken cost over $100 million to make, and people are absolutely blown away by this news. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.